Good evening and welcome to our F1 Live post-race show, coming to you live from Jeddah Corniche Circuit, live in the paddock, which is very busy after a spectacular Grand Prix, the second round of the 2022 Formula One World Championship, and 50 laps of wheel-to-wheel racing. You barely had time to breathe. I'm joined by reserve driver for Haas, Pietro Fittipaldi. A very good evening to you. Sensational. That's my adjective. What's yours?
Yeah, it was an awesome race. I mean, 50 laps, especially like the last 7-8 laps of the race. Great racing by Max and Charles. Very exciting stuff. I think we can see again that, I mean, these new generation cars, it is creating more racing, in my opinion. So I thought it was a great race, a good race for Haas as well. Finishing the points, which that was a goal. So yeah, pretty good day overall.
It has been a fantastic evening here in Jeddah, with Max Verstappen taking the win ahead of Charles Leclerc. And what incredible battling we saw from the two of them, our title protagonists, I think, for 2022. But let's take a look then at our classification. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us using hashtag F1 Live as well. Let's take a look at how the grid finished up this evening. So Charles Leclerc was pipped to the post by Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen winning here in Jeddah. Charles Leclerc P2, Carlos Sainz P3 ahead of Sergio Perez P4. Our pole sitter, a disappointing race for him. P5 for George Russell ahead of Esteban Ocon. Then Lando Norris P7 ahead of Pierre Gasly. Then Kevin Magnussen sneaking into the points for P9, and Lewis Hamilton just P10 for the Mercedes driver. Zhou Guanyu P11, Nico Hülkenberg, the super sub, P12 ahead of Lance Stroll in P13. And then, unfortunately, Alex Albon, P14, didn't manage to finish the race. Valtteri Bottas also retiring. Fernando Alonso, Daniel Ricciardo, Nicholas Latifi, and then Yuki Tsunoda also unable to even start, let alone finish the Grand Prix this evening. Well, that is how it all finished up this evening in Jeddah, and just brilliant racing, as we said, as we see Nico Hülkenberg walking off there as well. We'll talk about it more during the show, but Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, it was such brilliant racecraft again, wasn't it? I'm so excited to see these two just going at it, and the fact that Charles loved the race, even though he finished P2.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's a type of racing that every driver wants. It's fighting for the win. One lap after another, overtaking each other. And I think this racetrack provides that. Obviously, it's a very fast circuit, and there are the consequences of that with, heavy crashes and stuff. But in terms of the racing, where the DRS zones are, you're out of turn 22, you get a DRS up until the last corner. That's an overtaking opportunity. And then sometimes the driver doesn't want to overtake because they want to have DRS for the main straight. And that's what we saw a lot throughout the race as well. And I think they're fighting just prove, like I said before, I think these new cars, you can follow a bit easier. And again, both of them fighting each other for the win. We saw that in Bahrain. And as you said, I think this might be a bit of what's going to happen, for the rest of the season, because it's going to be a close fight for the title.
Certainly is. So great to see that. Less great for AlphaTauri driver Yuki Tsunoda, who unfortunately came to a grinding halt on the recce lap, so didn't even make it to the grid. Let's listen to what the Japanese driver had to say even before the race started.
Well, Yuki, sorry to see you so early on in the pen from this one. Just talk us through the issues you've been having in the car.
Yeah, I think around PU, but I don't know what exact problem is. Maybe it's not PU, but yeah, we have to investigate what's the issue. But yeah, it's so shame that having these problems 2 times in a row for us is two rounds in a row. So yeah, we cannot continue like this. We have to solve this issue as soon as possible. Reliability issue to have more consistent result. Yeah.
It's been a weekend to forget for you. Obviously, last weekend that was the same case for Pierre Gasly as well. We can see that this car does have pace. We saw that with your result in Bahrain. In that case, how frustrating is this that you're standing here now, not in the car racing?
Yeah, exactly. When we see this race, it's already happening. Like a lot of drama starts happening. So even I started like P19. I think anything can happen. Maybe it was possible to in the points. So yes, yeah, it's so shame. And like you said, in Bahrain, the race pace was quite good. So and also from my side, just disappointed I couldn't have experience and to improve myself. But anyway, it is what it is. We talked a lot with the team, and we have to face forward. and yeah, just develop through the year.
Absolutely, on to the next. It's a long season.
Disappointing for Yuki Tsunoda, but bittersweet perhaps for AlphaTauri with Pierre Gasly P8. And welcome to the show, to the F1 Live post-race show. Valtteri Bottas, I've just cleaned your mic for you there, so ta-da! Valtteri, bit of a disappointing evening for you. Tell me what happened, because you were wheeled away and we weren't quite sure why.
It was a good race till we saw an issue with the engine temperature starting to go up. It was initially like small rise in the engine temp, but then it was rapid, and even with like lift and coast, finding clean air, it was going up till the point that the engine was in risk of failing. So we retired the car to not to lose the engine, basically. That was the only option.
So hopefully that won't mean penalties further down the line or a new engine in Australia.
I hope so. Should be okay. That's why we stopped. But if we would have continued, then it would have been gone. So.
And just sum up your weekend then here in Jeddah. Do you feel you guys have made a step on since last weekend in Bahrain?
I think performance-wise, compared to other teams, it felt quite similar to Bahrain. So I think, again, we were fighting for like 6th place, more or less. So, yeah, it's good to see that even with this different track, more high-speed content, we could be up there fighting. So gives me hope for the coming races. And I think we're not in a bad place, and I really enjoyed the racing till everything ended.
Well, that's great to hear. And just take me back to the start. I know last weekend in Bahrain you were suffering with some oscillations with the clutch, and then this weekend Joe was having trouble with anti-stall as well. So is this something that you guys are going to have to really fix in the coming sort of 10 days, 2 weeks? Absolutely.
I mean, now my start was better than in Bahrain for sure. They're not still perfect. So yeah, there is work to do for, with the systems, electronics, all these things for lap 1, and also reliability. I think those are the main things. Otherwise it's good.
Well, we will meet again down under in just under 2 weeks' time. Bad luck tonight, and I'm sure better things are coming your way in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you so much, Valtteri.
Cheers.
Disappointing stuff for Valtteri, because actually the Alfa Romeo is showing great pace, but perhaps it's just a little fragile as well.
Yeah, I mean, we see that. Obviously, it's a new car for everybody. We had a lot of DNFs today that weren't caused by crashes. And I think that's just, sometimes it's not a major issue that's with the car, but it's a small little thing that ends up ruining the race, and you have to stop. Like abandon the race. He had maybe some cooling issues. He said something was overheating, so you have to stop. It's not like the engine blew or anything like that. It's just they're avoiding getting an engine penalty down the line, but it could be something very small that ends up causing an overheating. So it's about kind of understanding, the little bugs that come with these new cars and going through. We had a lot of that in testing as well. We had limited testing because of those things, and luckily for us in these 2 races, everything has run smoothly.
Well, it didn't run smooth for Nicholas Latifi this evening for Williams. Lap 27, a crash for Nicholas. He also crashed in qualifying yesterday, so it'll be a weekend to forget for the Canadian driver. Let's hear what Nicky had to say at the end of his time in the race.
Hello, Nicky. So sorry to see you out the car so soon. First of all, how are you physically after that crash?
I'm okay, thank you.
You're good. 2 crashes in 1 weekend. It's one to forget for you. Just talk us through exactly what happened on that final turn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly so sure, to be honest. I mean, the rear just seemed to let go again, but very unpredictably. I mean, it's what we've been finding with this car so far. It's very unpredictable, and I mean, the balance is all over the place. I mean, there's no secret there. But as the driver, it's my job to try and still get the most out of it and drive it. And obviously, like you said, it's 2 times I've put it in the wall, and it's not what I expect from myself at the level I'm at. But it's tricky. I mean, it's just one to forget and move on, and obviously huge apologies to the team for all the damage this weekend.
You've mentioned a couple of issues with the car there. Can you put into words the emotions you're feeling right now after 2 race weekends really to forget?
Yeah, it's just frustrating. I mean, we're not starting off where we hoped to be, but irrespective of that, we're just having a lot of, I'm struggling a lot with the balance of the car. I mean, it's one thing to just be, to have the pace we're at, but just lacking overall downforce. It's another thing when you're where you're at, and then the car is kind of balance-wise a bit all over the place, and that's obviously where I'm struggling with right now. I mean, I wasn't racing anybody. I mean, I'm just driving by myself, and the car is still extremely difficult to drive. So it's, like I said, that's my job, and I got to see what I could do to improve it.
Hard luck, Nicky.
Thank you.
It's a long season.
Two other DNFs then, Daniel Ricciardo and Fernando Alonso. Daniel Ricciardo, just no drive coming out of turn 27.
Yeah, I don't know if usually when that happens, it's either a gearbox or the engine going. So you know, I don't know what the team said, but yeah, you can hear it. I was watching, like, he's downshifting into the corner, and then the engine kind of goes quiet. And it's weird. You also see him locking the front tire because you end up using a lot of the engine braking to stop the car. So when the engine stops working or something like that stops working, you end up using a lot more of the fronts to stop the car, and he ends up locking because of it. So you can see the engine goes quiet, and then yeah, he was kind of just strolling back to the pits, and not sure if it was an engine or a gearbox. I don't know exactly what went, but obviously something went.
Well, we're going to find out because Daniel Ricciardo has been talking in the media pen, and here he is.
Hopefully you can hear me over the fireworks. Commiserations today. So sorry to see you retire from what looked like a relatively decent position as well, given how the season has started for McLaren. Talk us through what you think the issue may be.
I lost drive, so it could be a number of things. Maybe drive shaft, if I was to guess. But I'm no mechanic, so don't take my word for it. But yeah, it was obviously. I think we could have had a double points, which is pretty awesome from where we were a week ago. And yeah, it was looking all right. I think there's some positives to take from the weekend for sure. So yeah, we still have a lot to go, but certainly some progress, which is nice. And I think just the racing's fun. You know, you can follow this year, and I think everything that we hoped would come out of these new cars so far is bearing true. So I'm really happy with that, and like watching the battle for the lead, it's really awesome to see that racing. So of course I want to be there, but to know that we can fight hard like that this year, it's really exciting. So hopefully we're battling for some bigger positions soon.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned progress. Can you put any of that into specifics of your feeling in the car and what exactly is improving for you, both personally for yourself, of course, coming back from COVID, and indeed in this how this car is moving forward?
Yeah, I think I don't know, maybe just the characteristics of this circuit certainly seem to help us, and I think both of us, although we weren't setting the timesheets alight, you know, we had just a bit more confidence with the car from really FP1, and so yeah, it still might ebb and flow depending on some circuits we go to, but looking at Melbourne, the changes they've made, I think it's going to be quite flowing, and hopefully that suits us, and I think though for the racing it's going to be good fun, so we'll see what happens.
I can see in your face you're very much looking forward to Australia.
Yeah, I'm excited to go home and compete there, and yeah, for now we'll obviously keep chipping away, and we can't promise amazing results yet, but we got to keep at it, and yeah, I'm sure some better things are on the horizon.
Hard luck today. It's a
Thank
long
you.
season ahead. Thanks,
Cheers,
Daniel.
Daniel Ricciardo loves a chat, and while he's been chatting, we've been greeted by Pierre Gasly. P8 for you, Pierre. Some nice little battles in there, especially with Lando.
Yeah, it's been quite an eventful race for us. Yeah, we had quite a few battles. We got quite unlucky with the safety car. Boxed, and as I came out of the pit lane, safety car came out, so I think we lost like 5-6 position there. And yeah, from P14 we managed to get back to P8, so no, really it's been a good day.
And it's been quite an eventful weekend in general. The new ICE, then the floor damage yesterday. Yeah. So actually, I guess you take P8 after all that.
Yeah, no, definitely. We qualified in 9s, we're finishing P8. It's been close with the Alpine and Lando. So you know, we're in the mix. We know we got to find a bit more performance in some areas. We know what to improve. But yeah, we got to every weekend slowly making our way forward.
And I guess now you've had 2 races, starting to feel more comfortable with these new cars and how they're set up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling good. You know, especially on a track like this, which is so fast. It's important to get a good feel with the car, push to the limit.
Just
but overall, it's been good.
I'm just bringing Lando in with a clean, wet-wiped mic. There we go.
Fucking fast today.
You guys battled hard this evening.
Who?
You guys did.
Yeah, we
saw
did
it on
see
the
some
screen.
at some point at the start.
Some good races.
Yeah.
I think we had a little bit of the upper hand today, so
I saw you were going to get Esteban.
I was ahead onto the last lap, But he was so much quicker in the straight, like he just completely was ahead of me. Yeah, yeah.
No way.
Another drag race for Esteban. Last year he lost out, but
I know.
he got it this time.
He was a winner this time.
Well, look, Pierre, we would love to stay and chat, but I know you've got lots of
Yeah.
people wanting to talk to you. So thank you so much for joining us on F1 Live Post-Race Show. And we will move into the hotter seat, Lando Norris. So
Hello.
your sort of summary of where you guys are at after that race, do you reckon?
I mean, we're in a similar place to before, honestly. We had a much better, not more fireworks, please. Boring. Yeah, like if we went back to Bahrain, we'd still be terrible. So I think we have to be honest with that.
Let me just wipe that for you.
Yeah, wipe it. Pierre's touched it, you know. Yeah, he has COVID. Yeah, but it was a good day for us. We went forward, we caught cars which we didn't expect to catch, like the Alpine, and therefore I think a lot of positives. But we still know we have a lot of work to do. So.
Well, you've got a bit of time, a little bit longer this time before Australia.
Not as much as we need. We need a couple months, honestly, and we only have a couple of weeks, so we'll see what we can do.
Maybe in time for Silverstone. That'd be nice in front of the home crowd.
Yes, exactly. We'll win by then.
Well, great to have you on the show, and great watching you guys battle to the line.
Already?
Well, if you've got, I know you've got more
Why you
gold
don't want to stay with me, Lando?
Yeah.
Just talk me through that battle at the end. Then you last year you didn't get it, but this year you got it to the line. Not necessarily for a podium.
We had practice on last lap.
Yeah.
I had a bit of practice from last year for sure, but no, I mean Lando was too fast in the end. Honestly, if he would not have been this year's car, I would not have been able to get him back. But you can follow so much easier now that I managed to, use the DRS in the last lap and get him back.
Oh, well, there you go.
I know, it sucks. I hate the new rules. You know? No, it's good. I think it was good for us. I heard about his race with Fernando earlier in the race, and even the battle between Max and Charles. I think a lot of it is because of these new cars. You can follow a lot closer. You can get into DRS, and also when you pass, it's also easier then for the car to come back at you and have another go at you. So.
What do you make of that turn 27? Sort of everyone holding off, not trying to pick up DRS. I mean,
That's what we're both doing. That's
you're
what
actually
we're
going to be stationary, I think, at points.
I mean, it's the racing part. It's not simply.
You're
about
gentlemen, aren't you? You're gentlemen. After you, sir. No, after
exactly.
you, please.
You don't always want to be ahead sometimes. So it's part of racing. It's not all about driving a car quick in Formula One. There's a lot more to it, and he got me today.
Well, don't worry, because we race again in 10 days' time. So
I know.
Do you guys think you might be the competition you're facing then?
I think it's not going to be the last time that we race together.
It depends. If we have a track which is high speed like here, yes. If we go back to Bahrain again, then no. So.
Well, positivity only way is up, I feel, for you guys at the moment.
No. The only way is not up. For us, it can also be down.
Oh, Lando. Okay,
I love to be
kind
positive, but.
Which
the slow speed, we are really bad, and we're a long way off. Like even these guys, and Bahrain was evidence of that. But when we come to a track here, we can show more the speed that our car has got in the medium and higher speed corners, and that's where we were strong today. It's where I could catch Esteban. But if we have more slow speed corners, I'd struggle a lot more. So the slow speed tracks we're going to struggle, and I think we know that and we expect that. But tracks like here and maybe Australia, because it's a bit more high speed, I think, this year with the changes. Maybe it suits us a bit more.
Maybe even Monza again, you might be right back up there.
No, there's a lot of slow speed corners and straights, and we're not good in either of those.
Well, on that positive note. No,
so yes, I'm off, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's been great having you. We will let you go, because I think you're being
there'll be
beckoned
more
away.
Positivity from this guy.
Yeah, don't worry. No, we like it. We like realism as well, don't we? Yeah. Lando Norris there, finishing a respectable P7. Well, Esteban, we've spoken about your battle to the line with Lando, but it would be remiss of me not to mention your battle with your teammate, Fernando Alonso. Of course, he didn't make it to the checkered flag, but just tell me what was going on the radio waves. We heard a little bit of it, but any team kind of direction?
Well, we are allowed to race. I think that's what the team decided before the race. That we were going to be fighting, fair and square, and that's what we did. We've raced really well together. It was good fun. I really enjoyed, racing with Fernando. I know how far I can go with him, and it's been fun. In the end, yeah. I mean, we are also trying not to lose out to Bottas, but with these cars, it's like a go-kart race. You can follow so close that. The best defense is the attack, so I wanted to be in front of Fernando, not to get overtaken by Bottas. And if it would have been the other way around, it would have been tough for Fernando to keep the position as well. So, quite a new way of racing, which is fun. But it's definitely pushing the team level higher.
Well, we saw also Otmar Zafnar, of course, the new team principal at Alpine. He was sort of shaking his head a little bit on the pit wall. Perhaps he was a little bit nervous. Do you envisage any conversations between now and Australia, just tidying things up with you guys?
I think we will. We will discuss, of course, like we usually do. We are very open with that, but there is no issues. You know, we know where we are going with Fernando. We know how close we can race together. There's been no contact or no incident, you know, with us, so it's all fine. And it's a privilege to race against a legend like him.
And of course, let's not forget, you guys were racing for P6. So is that satisfying at the moment, P6? Is that where you kind of feel you guys slot in?
I think in quali we had a little bit more pace than this race, on my side especially. I think we struggled a little bit more with the car, especially on the first stint with the medium. But no, it's been a strong 2 weeks. I think I scored a lot of points. It's probably the best start of my Formula One career. These 2 races. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased, and I want to keep going.
Well, good luck for the rest of the season. Of course, we'll talk again. Enjoy the rest after this double header.
Thank you.
We'll see you in Australia. Well, so many battles, which is what we wanted to see in 2022. Teammates going wheel to wheel. Your heart has to be in your mouth as a team principal. Surely Otmar Zafnar will have to have a little bit of a word, would you imagine?
Me, I mean, I love to see it.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing. But obviously, when you're there, teammates, and there's so much on the line, you know, with Constructors' Championships and points, maybe they have to have a word. But they raced clean, like you said. They haven't had any incidents yet. They raced hard.
Yes, it
they
wasn't
didn't affect
reminiscent
each
of like
other's race.
Perez Ocon in Spa, for example.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was clean racing, hard racing, and I think it has to be like that. Even if you're teammates, you're all racing to you know, finish ahead.
Absolutely. Well, joined at the desk by none other than F1 Live's newest commentator, Jillian Palmer, former Formula One driver. You love that. All the superlatives coming out of the commentary box tonight. What a great race.
I ran out of superlatives. I need to broaden the vocab now.
I'm going to get you a thesaurus for your birthday.
I used them all on the Alpine fight in the first 10 laps. I had nothing more for everything else. It was incredible, unbelievable racing. And the whole way through the field, from the first lap to the last corner, from the lead fight to the guys further back. Yeah, what more to say?
Because at one point it was all looking quite midfieldish, the battles, and then it all came alive, didn't it, up at the front, because you sort of thought, okay, that's sort of sorted, let's focus on the midfield, and then everything took off. It was excellent.
It was a slow burn at the front. But it often is, though, because they're playing very tactically, particularly Red Bull and Ferrari. They're so evenly matched. The drivers are all really evenly matched as well, and they were just chilling there, a couple of seconds apart, saving the tyres a little bit, making sure they didn't burn them up and end up in trouble. Then you had the safety car. Checo, so unlucky, feel really sorry for him. And then the virtual safety car later on, which is what really allowed Max to attack then. And we had the fight at the front, though, for the last, 15 laps?
Glorious, absolutely glorious. Well, less glorious for Fernando Alonso. We just heard from his teammate Esteban Ocon. Great battle between the two of them, but unfortunately, it was a crawling Alpine at the very end for Fernando. Let's hear what he had to say in the media pen.
Hey Fernando, galling to see you out the race in such a way. Just talk us through what happened to you on the track and indeed what you think the issue may be.
Yeah, it was. I don't know exactly what happened. We're still investigating, but we lost power and then eventually the car stops. So let's see what we can find. And yeah, as you said, I think the race was good until that point. We were fast, we felt competitive, and unfortunately we lost a lot of points today.
Competitive indeed against other cars and also against each other as well. A brilliant battle we all loved to watch between you and Esteban Ocon. What was that like to experience?
Yeah, it was good, obviously very intense. We had also in Bahrain another fight, so my car for whatever reason today felt a little bit faster than Esteban's car, so I had a little bit more pace, tried to overtake and pull away, which is what I did, and concentrate on Bottas, that he was very fast as well. So yeah, we lost a lot of points today and we gave points to other teams, but let's see in Australia.
Hard luck.
Well, disappointing for Fernando Alonso and Alpine, but taking some joy and positivity away from Jeddah with Esteban Ocon's P6 finish. Let's talk about Lewis Hamilton, because yesterday he was out of sorts. That W13 just not playing the tune he was trying to get it to play. And then today it looked like it was all going well, but then again, losing out to all of the way the narrative unfolded this evening. What about that for Lewis?
He was kind of double unlucky really today, because he was driving a nice race, started on the hard tyre, the same as Kev did in the Haas. and they were both ticking along pretty nicely, and the races were kind of intertwined as well for the whole way through. They both got unlucky with the first safety car, couldn't pit for the mediums at that point, and then even worse was the virtual safety car later on, and the pit lane was shut. So Haas called it right, and Mercedes, they just delayed slightly the call, and it hurt Lewis a bit more.
But I was actually quite surprised that they kind of came out on track where they kind of both were. It wasn't like Kev was way up the field from pitting when he did, with the pit lane being closed.
Yeah, but because Kev didn't gain anything, because they were still driving around under the virtual safety car, so he gained it a little bit because there was, I don't know, like 2-3 seconds of virtual safety car that was called as he was leaving the pits. But Haas jumped so early, they got the pit lane open, but no, everyone else wasn't crawling around. So Mercedes just didn't have the virtual safety car, and they had to wait a little bit longer.
So tricky how the cars fall. Well, let's hear from Lewis Hamilton, talking in the media pen earlier, our P10 finisher, and just 1 point to his name this evening.
Well, Lewis, P10 for you today. Do you feel you maximised everything you could in the car, given all the conditions today?
I mean, personally, I feel like I maximised everything. I don't know if we did as a team, but it is what it is. Move on.
You had bad luck, didn't you, with that safety car coming in and the pit lane, of course, closing, so you couldn't get off that hard tyre?
Yeah, it was a difficult one. I think, I had, so Alonso slowing down, it was double yellow flag, so I didn't push to overtake him. Then Daniel was stuck in the pit lane, so I didn't know if I could go in with the car that's sitting there, so it was just not great. And anyways, it is what it is.
Onwards, can you take any learnings from this weekend into the rest of the season?
Oh, the learnings are that we're quite a bit off pace-wise, and we've got a lot of work to do.
Thanks, Lewis.
A lot of work for Lewis and Mercedes and for George. So frustrating, I guess, when you know that there are parts pending and the performance is obviously there for not at the track. So how many races are we going to have to wait?
I mean, I think a lot of teams are planning upgrades. I would say it's hard to tell, but maybe by the 5th race, because there's so much area for development. I don't know if you agree, but it's a new car. There's a lot of things that the teams can do to improve, get an advantage. I wouldn't count Mercedes just out yet. I mean, they've won so many championships. They have a great group of people there. So if there's one team that can kind of bounce back and recover in terms of making the car faster, I think it's Mercedes. Obviously, they have a bit of ground to cover.
Absolutely, and we were talking about how it's the difficulty of being able to run the car low. That's what they're struggling with. What did you notice this weekend? Are they getting any better at that with their ride height and the rake?
Well, it's just trying to find a balance of porpoising, drivability. Straight line speed is a big problem for them, somewhere between having a lot of drag on the car and maybe missing a bit of power, where the Ferrari power cars are looking good. In racing wheel to wheel, you could see it with Lewis when he was racing with Kev Magnussen for that position. He had to lunge it on the brakes. We didn't see too many drivers having to actually lunge it there, even with the DRS, but the Mercedes straight line speed just wasn't all that great. So there's a lot of areas they need to work on, but I think Pietro's right, really. They're a team that they can move forward. So if Haas are racing Mercedes now, no offense to Haas, but you'd expect Mercedes to be the ones that are moving forward. They are relentless in their development. They've got a lot more to do, probably. They're not great at the moment, but the pace was closer to the front in the race. And I think in 3 or 4 races' time, they can get on to terms with it. And I mean, I don't think we'll see Lewis down there for too much longer, really.
No, absolutely. I think we'll see him back at the factory in Brackley, I'm sure, working hard with the engineers. I think potential pending for the Brackley and Brixworth-based team. George Russell finished P5. Let's hear from him now, talking in the media pen.
George, P5 today. Do you think you maximised the potential from this race and the car that you guys are currently struggling with?
I don't know whose towel that is, but
I'm not sure either.
P5 was a maximum today. We would have loved to have had more, but the car actually felt really nice to drive. We know what we're lacking, and that's downforce. But I think we got the car in a really nice window this race. I was pushing as hard as I could, and that was really cool. Probably the most physical race I've experienced in Formula One, which was cool to have the body pushed to the limit. That concentration throughout 50 laps on a street circuit like this, high speed. It was cool, but
I want to be doing this fighting for victories, not for P5 all by myself.
And once again, both drivers from Mercedes are in the points against the odds. You know, are you taking the positives from that and continuing to learn, of course, these two race weekends?
You always want to take the positives from a difficult situation, but we're not here to settle for that. You know, we can't walk away being pleased with that. You know, we know that we maximise the result on this given occasion, but every single person back at Brackley, back in Brixworth, wants more, and I want more, the whole team want more, and we'll continue to push until we close that gap.
Great stuff. Thanks, George.
A disappointed George Russell, and I guess quite rightly. I mean, I know the rules have shaken things up, but you would expect the Mercedes power, the Mercedes know-how to have pushed through with these new rules and regulations. Let's turn our attention to Sergio Perez. Of course, on pole, it was all looking pretty good, and then that, I'm going to call it like a dummy call from Charles Leclerc, saying pit to overtake. Perez slightly pushed into pitting, and then, of course, the safety car. Such a tricky position to find yourself in, Joe.
Yeah, it's just gutting for him because it's the only call they had to do, really. Pit to overtake means if he pits, I don't. If he doesn't pit, I pit. And that's what Charles was thinking from the car. He could see he was within undercut range, so he wants to try and undercut him. So he was on the radio and demanding that. The team went with it. So he's on pit to overtake, come out of the final corner, and he sees Checo pit, so Charles stays out. Now, if Checo doesn't pit, Charles pits, he's down in fourth. So it's literally that decision that Red Bull covered off the undercut. It was kind of the right thing to do, and it was just plain bad luck that Latifi crashed on the next lap and everyone else had a cheaper pit stop, basically.
And then I guess a word on that restart after the safety car with the Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez moment. What did you guys make of it? Obviously, you know way better than me. Should that position have been given back under safety car? What was going on there?
Well, I think it should have been, personally. I think, first of all, is the race coming out of the pit lane is to the safety car line, and it's difficult to see, but Carlos coming out of the pits was fractionally ahead of Checo at that point. So Checo has passed him then after the safety car line, which means he's passed him under safety car. So just swap the positions at that point. Now, I don't know what you thought, Pietro. I thought it was a little bit cheeky from Red Bull that they waited and waited and waited, and they only gave it back after the restart because it meant Carlos couldn't go and attack Max on the restart.
Yeah, it was obviously they did it trying to cover Max, you know, but at the cost of Checo, I think, because I think maybe Checo could have went and attacked Carlos after the safety car, after the restart happened. So,
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you know, so it could have gone either way because maybe Checo could have passed him back a lot easier. But at the end, I think they did it, as you said, kind of keep someone there in between Carlos and Max, and then have Max more time to be able to attack Charles.
And it kind of made Checo's life harder because then after the safety car restart, they're all on hard tyres. It's a chance at that point to make something work. The hard tyres after a safety car, they're a little bit cool. You got a nice run to turn one, but they can't do anything. And then he just had to hold George Russell back when he get the place back. It was just complicated, really. But it did protect Max in second to go after Charles.
And of course, the new rule with giving places back. How did you feel that sort of played out today with judging your moment to give back places?
I'm trying to remember all the other ones that happened. The Alpines,
yeah.
But when it's the same team, I think it's probably a little bit easier. And
although they had Bottas breathing down their neck, so that was a tricky one to get right, I guess, from a management
so early
point of view.
on, Esteban passed Fernando off the track, and then he gave the place back really late round the next lap, so he had the triple DRS, and then they tried to fight again. But all the while it was tricky because they had Valtteri and then Kev coming up behind as well. So you've got to play the sensible game, haven't you? You don't want to get the place back immediately because then you've got to follow through the twisty stuff and you're going to fall further back. So you want to give it back just before the straights, the DRS, and gives you a chance to overtake again. I think it played out okay. No one got into major trouble. It was only that Carlos Checo one. And okay, it's give or take. I would have been interested to hear the chat to the race director, but I'm glad that we can't now, just for all of our sakes.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we heard Carlos, and he was pretty adamant that it had to be given back, and I think that was the only really touchy one.
Well, you mentioned DRS. We're going to touch on that in a little bit, but first let's hear from Sergio Perez, our pole sitter this evening, but unfortunately finishing P4.
Checo, P4, I can see in your face that obviously that is not the result you wanted, certainly from a brilliant pole position. That safety car coming out at the wrong time for you, given that you just pitted. Talk me through that sort of opening stint of the race.
Yeah, it was just a big shame. You know, we had a good start. We had basically after the first stint, everything felt under control. We had a good first long stint, and then later on, we had the issue with the safety car, which really ruined our race, our weekend, and there was nothing else I could really do.
Can you take any of the positives from what is a historic weekend for you, for Mexico?
Well, definitely. You know, yesterday put it on pole. Today having the race pace in place, and obviously Max's win is great boost for the team. You know, we got the pole yesterday, we got the win today. So although I'm very frustrated today, I take the positive as a team. We did a fantastic job, and I'm very pleased for everyone back home in Milton Keynes because they've done a tremendous job.
P4 is a difficult position to come. Thanks very much, Checo. Better luck next time.
Better luck next time for Checo, absolutely, as Laura Winter says in the media pen. Well, a disappointing day for Sergio. I mean, finishing P4 is not the end of the world, but I imagine he'd have liked to have topped off the weekend with the win.
When you start on pole,
yeah,
you want to win.
It's terrible. It's the worst case. You don't even get a podium.
Don't get anything to take home.
And also, it's easier to accept it if you've done something wrong. Okay, you can beat yourself up, but he'll feel a bit of injustice. The safety car, we know it can change races, and it was just him and a couple of others, but for the race lead, it's really tough to take.
But hey, points for both Red Bulls, so they're a very different story from last weekend in Bahrain. Of course, both Red Bulls DNFing. Let's hear from their team principal at Red Bull, Christian Horner. He's been talking to Will Buxton.
Christian, what a sensational result for you, for Max, for the team today. A beautiful drive from him.
A great drive. I mean, great racing between you know all the drivers, but you know particularly Max and Charles again. They did it last week in Bahrain. This weekend, you know, again more overtaking, more great close racing, and yeah, you know, a great motor race.
These are two guys who have known each other for over a decade. They've been racing since go-karts. What extra little edge, needle does it bring to this battle that they know each other's tricks? They know each other so well.
Well, you can see they're both great racers. I mean, that was, you know, absolute quality from, you know, two of the best guys out there, and you know, it was an enjoyable race. I thought, you know, these cars, it does feel like you can follow a bit closer, that overtaking is a bit more possible. And you know, Max, he just played it cool. He waited for his moment, and then he struck and thankfully made it stick.
And a word for Checo, drove beautifully, lost the lead through no fault of his own.
Yeah, so unlucky for Checo. I mean, took the lead off that pole position, and he was controlling the race beautifully. And then, you know, we elected to pit on our predetermined lap. We could see that Charles was getting to within undercut range. So he banked the stop, and then unfortunately on his outlap, bang, a safety car. And you know, as we know with safety cars, sometimes they can work for you, sometimes they work against you. And unfortunately for Checo, yeah, he lost out on that occasion.
What a start to the season, huh?
Amazing. Thank you.
And they are off. Red Bull finally putting some points on the board for 2022. And last weekend it was a 1-2 for Ferrari. This weekend a 2-3. So let's hear from their team principal, Mattia Binotto.
Mattia Binotto, not the win today, but a sensational drive from Charles once again.
Yeah, it has been a fantastic drive. I think he has been very good. The car overall behaved well. We can be pleased with the second and third position. Congrats to Red Bull for the results. Red Bull and Max drove very well as well today, and I think it has been a great spectacle for the entire F1, so very pleased with that.
It really is a spectacle and a joy to watch two drivers who've known each other since childhood, fighting wheel to wheel with respect, with the values of racing. How happy are you to see this, to be a part of this?
I think it's fantastic for us because our first objective was try to be competitive and to fight for the win, and if I look at the first two races, on a total of 88 points, we are scoring 78. So I think overall we can be very pleased and happy. And somehow today was important to finish, try to score the maximum points. It's always a shame not to be first when you were leading the race for many laps, but again, it's a spectacle.
The battle for development obviously starts here, and now that Red Bull, a lot of power, a lot of speed down the straight. But you guys, you were competitive throughout. Charles with the fastest lap of the race proved that.
Yeah, as we said, we know that they are very strong and very fast, and their car is great. So they had, as you said, a lot of speed in the straight. which was somehow facilitating their overtaking maneuvers. But each single circuit will be different, and let's see how we will develop through the season.
Now you can rest a little bit, I guess, maybe take stock of these first 2 races. You must be so happy, though, with how the season has started.
We are very happy, but we are looking forward already to Melbourne.
Thank you so much. Well done. Grazie, Silvia.
A great points haul for Ferrari and Mattia Binotto's team based in Maranello. And yes, 10 days now to sort of reset and regroup ahead of the Australian Grand Prix. Let's shift our attention to Carlos Sainz, P3 for him. And at the beginning of the race, we were all hearing, something wrong with Carlos. Is it going to be a pit lane start? And then we heard that it was a wiring loom. When you hear that as a driver and you're in the cockpit, you're like, what am I doing? What's going to happen?
Yeah, well, we were all thinking that, and when the mechanics are gathered around your car and the team principals come in to have a look at your car 15 minutes before you're about to head out just to the track, normally they're a bit more relaxed at that stage, so I think something's up. But
it's not the best feeling when that happens. Right before the race, everybody gathered around your car. But at the end, it ended up working fine. I mean, there was no real issue. I mean, he was able to start the race without a problem.
Absolutely. Just a momentary blip when he talked about a missed shift. Were there any worries there? Long-term worries for the Ferrari?
I don't think so. I guess it's just a slow shift that occasionally can happen. But yeah, when you're driving and you're in a podium place and you're maybe in a championship fight, everything that's not perfect is like panic, and
sensory
you get on the
overload.
radio. Yeah, but occasionally you get a shift that's just not a seamless shift, and I imagine it's just that he didn't really lose a lot of pace at that point. The damage was sort of done to the leaders already, so you get a bit cagey, and I think maybe it was just that. But a good day for Carlos. Just he couldn't quite fight with the leaders again.
Yeah, just looking for that win, Carlos Sainz, and looking to get a little bit more comfy in the F175 Ferrari. Let's hear from the Spaniard now, talking in the media pen.
In the end, it didn't cost us, not even nerves, because I was quite relaxed that the car was okay. The guys did an incredible job there. And at the start was actually very good for me. I just got boxed in by Charles and Checo at the start, and I couldn't make a move here. It's a very short run. Then Max had the inside line there, and I couldn't do much. But from there on, a better feeling with the car than in Bahrain. I think I did a step forward in the right direction. I also know exactly where I'm lacking and where I need to improve with the car. But apart from that, I think we are going to get there. And while I'm not feeling 100%, I'm still getting good points, finishing the podium, so it's coming.
You say you know where you're lacking. Can you share that with us?
It's 2 corners, in particular 2 corners of the circuit. I'm not going to go into detail. I know exactly the feeling that the car is giving me there. Compared to last year, there were 2 corners that last year were very strong for me, and this year, with the feeling I have with the car, in these 2 corners, I cannot do them like I was doing them last year, and it's costing me. So as soon as I put the car a bit more to my liking and I adapt a bit my driving, I think it will come, and we're going to be in a strong place.
Another podium and great points for Ferrari.
Thank you.
Well done today,
Cheers.
Carlos.
These new cars, I'm just so interested by the drivers saying, I'm not quite sure what that was, but hey, it's a nice backing track. I'm loving how the drivers are having to adapt their driving style, so many up and down the grid, having to really flex their talent, really, to deal with this new car.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, just the fact that you can have these wheel-to-wheel fights, you can never turn off in the race. You know that even if you pass a guy, the next lap round, he can be right back with you and you can be defending again. The cars are just, even when you're on your own, I mean, you've driven them, Pietro, they just look like they're harder to drive. You've got to fight more at the wheel as well.
Yeah, the previous generation cars are more enjoyable to drive if you're like on a qualifying lap, low fuel, because the car was just stuck to the ground. I mean, you turn, it goes wherever you want. It has amazing traction. These cars, they're heavier, they're more sluggish. Every kind of understeer, oversteer you have, it kind of happens a bit slower. So if you have like a snap or wheel spin, everything happens a bit slower. So I think that plays into a lot when you're on older tires, fighting with other people, a little bit of dirty air. You're moving around a lot more, and that ends up creating more opportunities for mistakes and more action on track, and I think that's what we're seeing.
We are definitely seeing more action. Let's talk about the top 2 then, because it was great. It was scintillating, and it went on for ages. As you said, a bit of a slow burn, but then they really let it go. Let's start with the restart, because we saw it in Bahrain, and again, that was quite clever positioning. We've seen it again tonight in Jeddah. What did you make of how Charles Leclerc managed that?
He did well. He did well on the restart. Max has a restart technique where he likes to just get side by side with the leader, stop them turning in from where they want to be. And Charles just didn't really bite. He just basically managed to force Max slightly wide, take the lead. No DRS, of course, on the restart. So the pressure wasn't as badly there, but Max was really trying to force the issue with that side-by-side
Is
stuff.
that allowed? I was wondering if that's allowed, because at the end you're impeding the guy in front. I mean, I think it's great because it causes, some chaos, but I don't know if is it allowed? I guess it is.
So long as you don't overtake. But then remember Abu Dhabi, where he
quite
just
close.
about did.
He did.
And
What did he? Yeah.
it's a fine margin, but then we get this.
Oh.
So this was then the battle for DRS. The first time around, Charles let Max through. This time around, Max knew about it, so they both just slam on the brakes before. I mean, it was just a crazy race, really. The DRS fight, when they were both just slamming on the brakes to not go through, it's a little bit silly there, isn't it?
It's almost a car park on the way into 10:27, like everyone just stopping, hauling on the anchors.
The slowest battle for a race lead that ever took place in Formula One. But it's tactics. It's all tactics to try and get the DRS, which is powerful, especially when there's 3 in a row around this circuit. So you get 1 DRS to close, another DRS to maybe overtake at 27, but if you do it there, you're going to be stuffed for turn 1. So they just sit there, and then it comes down to the final one. But it's just brilliant fighting overall. Okay, one moment where they're locking up wasn't the best spectacle, maybe.
It's a showcase of like the pinnacle of motorsport, but it's also clever. It's clever.
There was tactics in it, and Charles at that point was outfoxing Max, but you can only do it for so long. Max wised up to it. Shoe was on the other foot in the end, but Charles couldn't quite get close enough for the move.
Well, a disappointing day, I would say, for Charles, even though he said he loved the race. I guess when you're leading for so many laps, you almost expect to take the checkered flag. Not so for Charles this evening. Let's hear what he has to say.
Charles, P2 today, I'm sure, mixed emotions, it's bittersweet, but talk us through that battle with Max Verstappen, because we were loving it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too, but obviously disappointed with the second place. I mean, we've been leading for the first part, for a big part of the race, and then to lose the lead at the end is a shame. But it's like this. We took a bit of a different approach to the weekend with a bit more downforce compared to Max and to the Red Bull in general, and to beat. It was extremely difficult for me to defend with the straight line speed they had. So it's like this, but yeah, it's the way it is, and now we need to keep working and hopefully do a step forward in Melbourne.
I mean, P1, P2 last week, P2, P3 this weekend. It's still looking good for Ferrari, for you at the top of the standings too.
Yeah, I think the season is very long, and we need to be consistent. Today maybe Red Bull was a tiny bit stronger, but we brought both the car home and in good places. So good points for the team, and now we need to keep pushing.
It's shaping up to be an epic battle between the two of you. Thanks very much. Well done today, Charles.
Super enjoyable for all of us watching here in Jeddah, and also I'm sure you guys watching at home. Great racing from both Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. So let's turn our attention to our winner this evening, Max Verstappen. What do we think about his campaign this year? What have we seen of him so far? Obviously, reliability letting him down last weekend. Right back in it. Obviously, a massive protagonist and championship contender, without doubt.
He's not done a lot wrong, but he's only just got points this weekend. So obviously the failure in Bahrain has set him back and Red Bull back from Ferrari in the championship. But he's quick. Qualifying wasn't good for him. Made the race better for all of us, I think, because his race pace was probably the best out there. Just the fight, really. Him and Charles look like they're just slightly ahead of the other two. And yeah, Max should be right there, neck and neck with Charles in the points, but just that Bahrain race has held him back. I love the way he's racing, though. It's a lot cleaner than it was sometimes with Max and Lewis last year. The two of them have got a lot of respect. Long may it continue, because the race is just fun to watch, and it's going on for loads and loads of laps, not just one corner and then little incident or big incident or incident of some sort. Not so much there.
Yeah, absolutely. Long may it last. Really enjoying it. But just a word on yesterday with Max unable to switch those tyres on. Is that just something that's characteristic of the Jeddah Corniche circuit, or is it something that Red Bull are going to need to address potentially with their new car?
It just seemed a bit random. The tyres.
Tyres have been quite random this weekend, haven't they?
I'm sure in the briefings there's a huge amount of emphasis on it, because there were different approaches from the two Ferrari drivers, the two Red Bull drivers. What were your guys saying?
Yeah, it's because the tires this year, the blankets obviously start cooler, so they start at 70 degrees, where last year it was 100 on the rear, 80s on the front. Now you're starting at 70, and you have the outlap to try to get your tires up to temperature, and you don't want to be pushing with 70 degrees on your tire, because it's not in the right window. So if you don't get your tires up in the right temperature on the outlap, and that depends a lot on traffic and everything, and you end up not having the grip, especially like in Sector 1. You don't have the fronts in. So you end up losing a lot of time. So I think getting the tires in the right window for qualifying, it's a lot more difficult than it was last year.
Well, it makes such a big difference as well, particularly when you have a track like this one where the track's actually pretty smooth. Bahrain, it's bumpier, it's more abrasive. The tires do fire up, even if you're on the hardest compound, they get working. We see it sometimes in Sochi or Baku, other sort of like modern street circuits, where the tarmac's actually really smooth, and so it doesn't fire up. If you get it working lap 1, it can be great, but otherwise you need a prep lap and it starts to get a bit messy. So it held Max back yesterday, but for the race, I think it was maybe good that it did, because it meant he was on a charge today and we had the great fight.
Well, who knows how it will play out in Australia. Of course, that's a sort of pseudo street track, isn't it, a little bit?
Yeah, it might be similar. Australia's changed a lot as well. They've changed the layout, it's been resurfaced. There's a lot of unknowns for Australia.
Oh, I like it already.
Great.
Well, let's hear from our race winner, Max Verstappen, talking in the media pen.
Max Verstappen, what a difference a week makes. This time last week you were retired, double retirement. Now you are the winner of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And what a battle it was with Charles Leclerc. How much fun did you have out there?
Yeah, it was a tough one. I mean, it was not easy, especially in the beginning. To follow was quite difficult. It was very easy to to open up the tire, and then you have no performance anymore. But I think once we swapped to the hard tire, actually it went well. I think we played the long game on the tires, and especially after the last VSC, it seemed like we had good tire grip, and we could make the most from that. So yeah, tough battle. I really enjoyed it with Charles. It was not easy to get past him, but in the end we did it, and yeah, we can be very proud. Of course, unlucky for Checo today with the first safety car, but I'm sure we have plenty of races to make up for that.
And it's clever, canny racing, isn't it? Certainly alongside Charles. You have to have patience, don't you, to actually make the move and make it stick?
Patience is always key, and especially when you want to fight for the championship, you have to fight hard, but of course take a mind you need to score points. So that's what we did today. I think both of us, we raced hard, but of course we also want to score the points.
Well done today, Max. Congratulations.
Max Verstappen, star of the show today, and of course his teammate Checo Perez, star of the show yesterday, but today that was the moment that counted, and Max Verstappen taking a big points haul, but it was Charles Leclerc with the fastest lap. So that brings us to the end of the grid. We've spoken all about the wonderful racing that we've seen here in Jeddah, but I mean, how many Fittipaldis is too many Fittipaldis? How many can you fit into an F1 Live post-race show? Let's join Will Buxton, who's talking to the two-time world champion Emerson Fittipaldi.
Emerson Fittipaldi, after a race like that, how do you reflect on the current state of Formula One and the racing that we're seeing?
I think it's a great show, great race. I mean, everybody in the grandstand standing up to see who's going to win. That's what the sport needed. I like the new rules. I like the way Formula One is going. I think it's getting the new fans, all the new young generation is going crazy about Formula One. In America, now before it was just IndyCar racing, now Formula One is huge. I'll be at the Miami Grand Prix.
It's going to be
That's
great.
my home.
We saw once again today a battle for the win. Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, two guys who've known each other since they were kids. They know each other. How important is it for racing drivers to know the tricks each other are going to pull, to know each other inside out like that, to have that respect?
I love to watch because they are driving the limit, still respect each other's space, but right on the edge. Huh? Sometimes they're locking wheels nearly, right on the limit. It's great to see. That's what I call the art of driving.
Can you remember the last time we had a Formula One season start like this, so close, such great racing, such a tight fight for the win?
The last race, Abu Dhabi.
If we have that for the whole season, it's going to be great, huh?
Oh, fantastic racing. I'm sure that this race, this year is going to be incredible for Formula One.
Thank you, Emerson. We'll see you in Miami.
See you there.
Well, I'm going to relay what your wonderful grandfather was just saying. Will asked him when did he last see such a great battle for the championship and racing in Formula One, and he very cannily said Abu Dhabi 2021. So he's great. We were loving watching that. You guys had no sound, so I was lucky. I was enjoying all of that. Fantastic to have Emerson Fittipaldi on the show, and likewise, fantastic to have Pietro Fittipaldi on the show. Well, that brings us to the end of the F1 Live post-race show here at the Jeddah Corniche circuit. We take a bit of a breather now because a double header, it's been great, but we need a little bit of a rest and time to recoup. I think a lot of teams probably heading home, new parts to be made and flown to Melbourne. Jolyon Palmer, your takeaway from the double header, not to get in the way of your Jolyon's takeaway, of course, just as a little teaser for everyone. But
takeaway expert.
Yeah, exactly. What have we learned already about our grid for 2022 from Bahrain and Jeddah?
We've learned that it's going to be an amazing season. The new rules have worked. I wish we'd had them sooner. The racing is phenomenal. Ferrari and Red Bull in the title fight. Can Mercedes get closer? I think that's the big question mark. And yeah, just bring on more great racing action.
Absolutely. Pietro has seemingly in quite a good place. So excited, hopefully, to see Mick back on the racetrack, although perhaps maybe you'll be waiting in the wings just in case he's not ready. But just where the team are at the moment, the feeling at the team right now.
Yeah, obviously very happy. I mean, a massive improvement from the past 2 seasons. Back in the points fight every weekend. Sometimes, fighting for top 5 like we did in Bahrain. And I think it's, like Jolyon said, it's going to be a great season. I think one key factor is going to be reliability. Reliability is going to be very important because a fight is so close. If you have one DNF, you lose 20, 25 points, and you're down on the championship standing. So I think reliability is going to be very key now moving forward.
Well, it's been a pleasure analysing the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix with you guys both. Jolyon Palmer, Pietro Fittipaldi, my thanks as well to Will Buxton, roaming the paddock, and Laura Winter in the media pen. Thank you to you for joining us as well. We meet again down under in Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix. From me now, though, Rosanna Tennant, it's goodbye.